Are you heading into 2024 with fundraising tools that make your job easier? Today's sponsor, QGive, can help. Over 20,000 fundraisers trust QGive to help them raise more money and improve their fundraising events. To learn more, just visit www.jcsocialmarketing.com/QGive. That is jcsocialmarketing.com/QGIV to get a custom walkthrough of the platform and a free This Is My Fundraising Shirt t-shirt. Just go to jcsocialmarketing.com/QGive. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Nation. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and I'm going to sit down with nonprofit industry experts, fundraisers, marketers, and everyone in between to get real and discuss what it takes to build that movement that you've been dreaming of. I created the Nonprofit Nation podcast to share practical wisdom and strategies to help you confidently find your voice, definitively grow your audience, and effectively build your movement. If you're a nonprofit newbie or an experienced professional who's looking to get more visibility, reach more people, and create even more impact, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nonprofit Nation, or welcome back. I'm your host, Julia Campbell. The question we're answering today is around video storytelling, namely the power of video, the power of storytelling, how we can combine the two effectively. And my guest is actually an older colleague, not by age, but just by association of mine, Rachel Jellinek. And Rachel's the president of Reflection Films Incorporated, a WBENC-certified woman-owned video production company. And Reflection Films does video storytelling and content creation for a variety of mission-driven organizations, and they're based in Boston, which is where I'm based, outside of Boston. And prior to Reflection Films, Rachel worked at several nonprofits focused on public health and education. She served as a health educator for youth and adults and as a director of a literacy program. Rachel holds a BA from the University of Michigan and an MA from Harvard. And in her free time, she enjoys bird watching and playing the banjo. I don't think I knew you played the banjo. That's awesome. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. I am learning to play the banjo.
We have to ask your favorite bird. Is that a tough question?
That is a very tough question. That is. I love owls. I love great blue herons. So I'm partial to none. I love all.
What's the rarest bird you've seen?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of what the rarest bird I might have seen. What's so funny is that I would have to I would have to
we
consult
didn't plan
my
any
bird
watching
list.
questions. So
I know,
I'm kind of throwing you for a loop here.
Well, I'd have to look up what's one of the things that's great. I'll give a plug for the trustees of reservations in Mass Audubon, because they both do guided bird walks. And so part of the bird watching, which is really nice, is at the end of the walk, they will send you a list and a record of all the birds that you've seen. But of course, you put me on the spot, and so I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, I love that, though. So
one of the
trustees of the reservations, if you're here local in Cape Ann and Essex County, they're one of also my favorite organizations. They do guided bird walks. I don't know the rarest one that I've seen, and I've done a little bit of bird watching, but I wouldn't say that I'm an expert. So let's dive right into the topic at hand. How long have you been focused on doing nonprofit video storytelling?
It's hard to believe, but it actually has been 17 years, which is really wild. It sounds like a very long time, and we've made a gazillion mistakes along the way. Some of them have been very funny and entertaining, but we're really happy that we have had the chance to work with so many great mission-driven organizations over time and are continuing to do so.
What got you started in this kind of work?
So it's interesting. When we started, we had a very different setup. We actually started doing oral history and family legacy videos out of an unexpected loss of a family member who we wanted to pay tribute to. So we actually created a tribute video in his honor. It was my father-in-law, Frank Birmingham. And after doing that tribute video, we wound up doing celebratory life stories of other people and other families. But what we found is that when we were doing that work, although we enjoyed it, we found that it was difficult because older family members either didn't think they had a story to tell, or they didn't think that their family members cared. And so that was a big obstacle. And so while we were trying to figure out how to kind of crack that nut, we had nonprofits and businesses coming to us saying, hey, we know we need to have our videos made. We know we need to tell our story. Do you do work with folks like us? For a while, we did video for families, nonprofits, and businesses. And then we took a step back and said, where do we really want to concentrate our time? And we landed firmly in the mission-driven space. So,
yeah, and you work with some pretty big names, especially around the Boston area. So from a storytelling perspective, what are some of sort of the key changes you've noticed in the way you do your work now versus when you started 17 years ago?
So what first comes to mind, and I think actually is probably the most important change, is when we first started the business, I don't think we really were conscious of our role in shaping the stories from early on. And what I mean by that is in terms of asking key questions about whose voices are being heard, whose voices are not being heard, why. Are the people who are at the table, do they feel like they have agency in the telling of their own story? So those are questions that we never used to ask in the beginning when we started our business. And now we ask those questions all the time when we're working with clients and prospective clients. And for us, it's really important for people to have agency in the telling of their story, be able to not be defined by the worst experience that's happened to them. A lot of the nonprofits we work with folks who have experienced homelessness, food insecurity, domestic violence. And so it's really important for us to celebrate people's strengths. And we make sure we ask that question. What do you see as your strengths? What are you most proud of? Because we don't want people to feel exploited in any way or that they're only able to share a part of their story. So I think that's one of the biggest changes in terms of the work that we do, is that we're much more conscious on the front end of our role in helping clients think about why are they asking certain people to participate in the video process, who's not being asked, and all the kind of questions in between.
How do you deal with maybe if an organization has a little bit of a lack of buy-in? It's sort of, okay, we've hired you. We want you to go do this video. Just go do it. But you really do need their partnership in it, like you were saying. How do you really sort of engage them in a true partnership and asking these hard questions? I think a lot of my listeners are in the same seat as development directors. They want to tell these stories and get these stories, but maybe some people that they work with, their coworkers, staff, supervisors, are a little bit hesitant to create this kind of video storytelling. Like what advice would you give them?
Well, one starting point where I think that it's a question that we ask, and it's a way, I think, of engaging a whole organization in a process of thinking, is we ask people what myths or misperceptions exist either about the work, either about your organization or the field that you're in, that you think video might be able to help overcome. Just by getting everyone brainstorming on that, you get all sorts of input, and there's some collaboration and team building or teamwork just in having everyone try and figure that out together. And I think that maybe might make getting started feel less daunting, because people, whenever we've asked that question, people always have answers. There's never been a point, there's never been a point where they say, no, there are no myths or misperceptions about our organization. So you know what? People don't really understand the services we provide. We're only known for one type of service. People think we're only serving people in a particular geographic area, or people who are struggling with a particular issue or whatever. And so I think that just by opening up that question and inviting everyone to think about it, I think that's one way of getting people on the same page. And then as part of our process, we have a couple of documents that we use to guide the work. So one of them is called the Client Bill of Rights, which lets folks know what they can expect from us and what we'd like to ask of them to make sure we're all on the same page, moving towards the same goals. And then we also have another document called the production checklist, where it's a collaborative process filling it out, but it's really looking at, what are must-have messages, nice-to-have messages, and asking questions about the culture of the organization. I think your question about buy-in, I think it can be tricky, especially, one of the things that we definitely make clear in our process is that we do need to have client representation. Like when we're filming, we need someone there to approve the look and feel, to make sure we're using the appropriate language, make sure that we're asking the questions that they want us to be asking. So if there isn't that buy-in, then maybe they're not ready yet to start the project. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to go into all the effort and do the filming and then don't have agreement about what the video should be used for. And you want to spend a decent amount of time in the pre-production to make sure you feel good about what's to come, instead of jumping into filming and then thinking, oh, we missed this opportunity to do this, this, and this. So there's a lot of planning on the front end, but it's worth it.
That leads me to my next question, because I do think that organizations tend to think with video, oh, we just kind of hire someone to do a video and then we do it and then we have it. But like you just said, there's so much that needs to go in to make it successful on the front end. It's almost like a recipe. So what are some other misperceptions that people have about the video production process?
I think one of the things that fairly consistently happens is that people think that they need to be focusing on getting all of this interview content. And I think that one of the things that we talk to people about is you don't want to be telling, you really want to be showing. And so if you don't focus on getting enough B-roll, so B-roll is the non-talking head footage that you capture in order to enrich the story that you want to tell.
That's like things in action, people doing things, right?
Exactly. So for example, if we were to be filming at an animal shelter, it would be getting footage of volunteers and staff taking care of the animals, or the animals playing with each other, or people coming in order to adopt an animal and getting that footage of that interaction. So the B-roll is really important for a couple different reasons. One is that as I mentioned, it enriches the story that you want to tell, but also from an editing perspective, it helps you make edits, and the B-roll covers the audio edits that you need to make. So it helps you make transitions smoothly from one edited comment to another. One of the challenges, or one of the misperceptions people have sometimes about the video production process, is they think it's all about interviews. Let's get all these interviews. And they don't think as much about the B-roll content, which is really important.
What kind of B-roll content would you get for an organization that maybe doesn't have that kind of action footage? So I'm thinking I'm sure there is action footage for every organization under the sun, but I'm thinking maybe like an advocacy organization where they don't really do a lot of the work in an office or in a building, or even an organization, maybe like a think tank or an academic institution where the work, they don't really have like a building. Do you know what I'm trying to say? How can we make a creative video around that?
Yeah, I think that what I would say, again, depending upon the mission of the organization, I think that you can get creative in terms of using photographs. So if it's an advocacy organization, photos at a rally, or if it's an educational institution that's trying to promote some research, maybe you use motion graphics or graphs or data, but you can use animation or represent data in an interesting way. I think that the goal is to just not have complete talking head videos. And so it's a matter of being creative. You can have animated, you can create animated content. You can use stock images if you need to. It really depends upon the mission, but we're always happy to brainstorm with people and think, okay, how are we going to represent what it is that this person is saying? Even if it's, for example, we're interviewing someone who's doing research and we've got a cover of a paper that they're doing or a cover of the book they've written, or so there's always opportunities and options. It's just a matter of brainstorming and being creative.
So on your website, you say, and I love this, with all of our projects, we strive to convey what we call the 3 Ps: pride, possibility, and purpose. And the video communicates the pride the organization has for how far it's come. It reveals the possibilities for the future, and it instills within the audience or viewer a sense of purpose. So tell me about this framework and how you use it in your work.
So I love playing with words. So I love doing all sorts of word games.
Yes.
Yes. And so what prompted me to create that actually is a long time ago, I attended a Google workshop where they came up with the 3 H's. And the first H was hero. It was talking about the buckets of content that you want to create. And so the first H was hero, and not in terms of making your donor your hero or anything like that. It's more, what is your hero content? Like, what are those large branding moments where you can create videos and show your impact and tell your story? So thinking about your hero moments. Then the second H was hub. So what's regular content that you can create and send out monthly or quarterly to keep yourself top of mind? So maybe it's, if you are an animal shelter, maybe it's a profile of a pet or a profile of an animal each week, or maybe it's a case study, or maybe it's a profile of a staff member, a profile of a volunteer. And then the third category was help. It's what is that content that's going to meet the audience needs. So maybe it's a how-to. If for example, if it's a academic institution, how to fill out a financial aid form, so it's kind of that help, how to value add, answering frequently asked questions kind of content. So after I heard about the 3 H's, I started playing around with P's. And so I actually came up with not only the pride, possibility, and purpose, because I think it's really important to think through. One of the things we always talk to people about is when starting and thinking about a video project is, what do you want people to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? And so that framework, I think, intertwines nicely with the pride, possibility, and purpose. And so that was sort of one of my frameworks. Another framework I was thinking about is, and again, it's P's for some reason. I don't know why I've done P's, but I think it's important for folks to think about the problem or the price, meaning what is the problem you solve, or what's the price that's to be paid? Like, if your organization didn't exist anymore, what's the price that's being paid for that? P for place, like doing videos, giving people a sense of the context of your work. Profiles, so you could always be creating staff profiles, volunteer profiles, partners or donors. Population, meaning focus on the population you serve. And then practical, or again, what is that practical, frequently asked question content that you could be creating videos about that would just be helpful for people to for you to have on your website, they can click on and learn, so you don't have to keep answering the same question over and over again.
That answers my next question, the kinds of videos that nonprofits should create. So let's just review that again. It was problem.
Yeah, problem. What's the problem that you solve? Or what's the price of if your organization didn't exist? Place, what kind of videos can give people a sense of the context of the work you do? Profiles, so staff, volunteer, partner, or donor profiles, and also testimonials, I would say. So testimonials are another bucket of content, but that's I guess, ready? That's P for praise. There you go. Forget testimonial, it's praise. So that's another P. Population is the population you serve, and practical is what's that practical content that people are seeking what's that how-to or help content that you could be creating?
And that is where in my line of work, what I see a lot of organizations where I see them falling short is that practical content, those frequently asked questions. I do feel like donors, supporters, constituents, they look to the organization as a go-to resource, because I don't have the time to know every single thing about food insecurity in my community. I wish that I did, but I look to my local organization to tell me what's going on. How can I help? How can I get my kids involved? How can I run like a food drive that's, responsible and actually helpful? So I agree. Practical content, I think, tends to get shoved to the wayside because we do want to focus so much on either praise or problem. But I love that you need to have a combination of videos. Like there's not really one video to rule them all. Like, would you agree?
Definitely. I mean, we always talk to people about creating a library of videos that you can use over time across different channels for different audiences and different calls to action. And I think that one of the mistakes that sometimes folks make is that they try and pack so much into one video that they're actually diluting their message. It would be better to create multiple shorter videos instead of one longer video.
And the tendency is if you have 30 programs, you've got to mention each program in the video, when really you want to talk about that pride, possibility, and purpose. I think that is just such an important framework. That's really helpful. So what do they tend to get wrong when they're creating video?
So I guess piggybacking on the idea, one is that they either try and put too many calls to action in one video. So it's, like us or attend our event or join our advocacy effort or volunteer or donate money. So they try and throw everything, or they don't have a call to action at all. So I think those are challenges. I think that another challenge is that when thinking about interviewees, often folks think about spokespeople and not storytellers. We often try and encourage people to think of sort of the unusual suspects. Like often folks will say, okay, we have to hear from our executive director and our board chair. And, they have a list of people that they think because of their title and their longstanding maybe connection to the organization, that they are definitely the go-to people who need to be heard in videos. And I don't mean any disrespect by saying that, but we always try and challenge folks to think about, well, who maybe are you not thinking about that would make sense? So who are those voices that maybe don't get heard as often? And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about, or I remember we talked about a while ago, was that doing kind of a storytelling audit, and not just a video one, but also just do you get quotes from the same people all the time? Whether it's in your blog or in your e-news or any of your written content, whatever it might be, kind of seeing what's the story that you already are putting out there and what's the story that people are used to hearing. And is there an opportunity to include voices from different perspectives? So that's something that we often talk about.
Spokespeople versus storytellers. I think that's really important. And I have a feeling often on a video shoot, it gets maybe kind of political because people want to be included. They haven't been included. They need their voices included. They're going to get mad if they're not included. But that's really the job of the person, like the development director, the executive director, to say, this is the point of the video. This is what we're trying to convey. We really want to include voices that have not been heard before. So it does take a lot of courage to really step up and say that.
And just to add on to that, what we also tell people is that if you want to include that, if you want to hear that person's voice and make them feel included, that's fine, but just manage expectations about which video they might actually get into. So they might not make it into the overview video, but you know what? Let's include a shorter clip that we can post with a blog or whatever. So you can still include people, but just maybe manage expectations about which video their voice is going to be in, if that makes sense.
Exactly, because a fundraising video might not be the most appropriate place for it, but an impact video, it might be more appropriate to have that particular shot. I love that. Manage expectations.
Which also is not easy. And sometimes, quite honestly, we've been leaned on as the video producer to do that we say, you know what, just blame the video producer. Just say, the video producer said, do this. And so that maybe can make it a little bit easier.
I do that all the time when people are asking me about what should go in their email newsletter, email appeal, social media. I say, just blame me because I'm not letting you put that.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to let you.
Yeah, we've been in that situation too.
So on your website, you have a great free download. I want you to tell us how we can get it. 8 steps to a successful video shoot. So how can we get this download? And can you give us some pointers to creating this successful video shoot?
Sure. So the way to get the article is to go to our website and In the drop-down menu on the left, it says you basically are joining our e-news, and then you get the article. Of course, if you don't want to stay on the e-news, you can certainly unsubscribe and still get the article. But we think that the article, we've heard from people who've read it, that it is helpful in terms of giving tips and managing expectations about the process for doing video. I can share some tips about it. I think one big thing that I think people could perhaps do a better job of when they're engaging in a video process is preparing their interviewees better. And I don't mean in terms of scripting them, but we literally have been on some film shoots where people have said, I don't know why I was asked to be in this shoot. and so I wouldn't say that's a common occurrence, but it has happened enough, which made us think, okay, we really need to be having conversations, more explicit conversations with our clients about how to prepare interviews and explain to them, this is why we thought of you. This is why we would hope you would participate. You're not asking people to script their ideas, but I think that people do want to be helpful and they want to know how they can best be helpful. And so if you're thinking about someone and you say, you've been connected to this organization for a while, we'd love to get your perspective on X, Y, and Z, then they can feel confident that they're going to be able to make a contribution. And they also might be able to come up and say, oh, well, in addition to X, Y, and Z, is it okay because I would be excited to talk about this. So it's really important to explain to people why you've thought of them and what your expectations or hopes are from what they will contribute.
We can't assume that they know. I think we make a lot of assumptions that people just can read our minds or understand the purpose of the video, the purpose of what we're trying to do. And also that really, I think when you invite someone to be a part of this process, helping them understand at any time, if you don't want to be in it, this is your story. This is you have complete agency over how you are appearing, the questions you're answering, but talking about the why of the video. I think a lot of times when you're a development director, you're asking people for things, but not explaining why you need them. You're saying, oh, we need stories for the newsletter. We need a video on our website. We need to, get testimonials so we can put them in the annual, report. But why? Like, what is the bigger purpose that we're trying to achieve? And what are we hoping to do? And going back to that, what do you want people to know? What do you want people to feel? And what do you want people to do? And it's so important. There's just not one video where everyone's going to know everything and feel all the things and do all the things. Like, it's just not the way it works. Like, just simplify it. So, if you haven't done any video before, for people listening, maybe they're a smaller organization, how can they get started with this whole video production process? It might seem overwhelming. Like, what's sort of the first couple of steps?
So I think that coming together as an organization, I think sometimes people get siloed. And so I think that sometimes fundraising folks might not know what the program folks are doing or vice versa. And so I think that just even sort of going back to that storytelling audit, just getting a sense of what are the opportunities for stories, what's going on so that and that the development and the program folks understand each other's perspectives and the relationships involved with the people who might be potential interviewees. So I think thinking together and brainstorming together what those possibilities might be, again, building on that idea of also what myths or misperceptions there might be about your organization that could be overcome by video. So I think those are kind of some good starting points. I think if folks have a communications calendar, it's always helpful to think about, well, what little video clip might we be able to add to boost engagement? Or thinking strategically about, so for example, if you have an event coming up, often events are one of the entry points for people creating videos because they realize, okay, we have a captive audience, we really want to showcase. So often events are where people will get started. And we always talk to people about, you want to get the most mileage out of the experience of filming. So create a pre-event teaser video that you can send out in advance and create a post-event thank you video so you have that extra video as well. in terms of the technical aspect of things and do-it-yourself video and filming, I'm not the best person to talk about the technical aspects and what equipment to use and all that kind of thing. But in terms of if you're going to be working with a video production company, I think it's really important to understand what their process is, because I think that video can seem overwhelming, but it shouldn't be. It really should be a lot of fun. And I think if you partner with someone that you feel confident in their process and that they're going to hold your hand throughout the way, then you have that partner. It won't be so intimidating.
And I say, look at a lot of examples. I know in your e-news, you send out a lot of the projects that Reflection Films is working on or has worked on. And I think that's very helpful because nonprofits can get the feel of the company, can see some of the things that they've worked on, and really get inspired for the possibilities, the possibilities of their own video. Well, where can people find you, learn more about you? And then, just repeat where we can get the 8 steps to a successful video shoot.
Sure. You can find Reflection Films. So our website is r-films.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Jellinek. And the article, when you go to the website, right there on the left-hand side is the menu. And down at the bottom, it says download our free article. And as I said, that will be signing you up for our e-newsletter. And I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I know. And it's been a while since we've seen each other, but it was really great to catch up. And this was really helpful. I do think a lot of my listeners, they definitely can benefit. They're either dipping their toe in video. Maybe they created a video, but we all need to understand the importance of video storytelling and how impactful it is, especially it's like a gift, I think, for our donors and our constituents. So thanks, Rachel, for coming on. And that was really fun.
Excellent. I had fun too.
Well, hey there. I wanted to say thank you for tuning into my show and for listening all the way to the end. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. I would love if you left me a rating or a review, because this tells other people that my podcast is worth listening to. And then me and my guests can reach even more earbuds and create even more impact. So that's pretty much it. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. But until then, you can find me on Instagram at JuliaCampbell77. Keep changing the world, you nonprofit unicorn.